All right, let's dive into one of the most unbelievable, audacious, and, let's be honest, pretty grim true stories to come out of the Second World War. It's a spy story so brilliant it really did change the entire course of the conflict. So, picture this. It's a cool April morning in 1943. A fisherman, just off the coast of Spain, sees something in the water. It's a body, and it's dressed in the full uniform of a British Royal Marine. Looks like just another wartime tragedy, right? Well, not quite. This was no accident. You see, chained to this man's wrist is a black leather briefcase, and inside, what looks like the Allies' most secret invasion plans. This one discovery is about to travel all the way from a quiet Spanish beach right to Hitler's desk. But here's the kicker, the twist that makes this whole thing legendary. The dead officer? He wasn't real. His life was a complete fiction, and those top-secret documents, they were maybe the most brilliant piece of misdirection in military history. This, right here, is the story of Operation Mincemeat. So let's start where the Germans did, with this incredible secret that just washes up on their doorstep. The man they're about to identify as Major William Martin isn't just another casualty of war. Oh no, he's a weapon, and he's been carefully designed. So why on earth did the Allies need a ghost? I mean, a fake dead body. It sounds insane. But to really get their plan, you have to understand the huge problem they were facing on the map back in 1943. And this really lays it all out. On the one hand, you've got Sicily. It was the perfect, most obvious next step for the Allies to get into Italy. The problem was, it was too obvious. The Germans knew it, and they were turning the island into a fortress for the invasion they knew was coming, Operation Husky. A direct attack would be a total bloodbath. So the Allies had to make the Germans look the other way, towards places like Greece and Sardinia. They needed to sell a very, very big lie. So where does an idea this morbid even come from? Well, years before, back in 1939, a document called the Trout Memo was floating around British intelligence. It had this list of ideas for deception, and one of them was literally labeled a suggestion, not a very nice one, planting fake papers on a corpse. And get this, the memo's co-author was a young intelligence officer named Ian Fleming, long before he ever dreamed up James Bond. So to give this ghost a life, that ghoulish idea was brought back by two masterminds, Charles Cholmondeley and Ewan Montague. Their job was basically impossible. Build a man a complete life from absolutely nothing. But first, they needed the most important and most troubling ingredient, a body. And this is where the whole spy thriller becomes a real human tragedy. The man who would become the fictional hero, Major Martin, was, in reality, a man named Glyndwr Michael. He was a homeless man from Wales who died in London totally alone and anonymous. He had no family to claim him, which made him the perfect, if heartbreaking, choice. They took a man who society had forgotten, and they made him a hero by making sure he was forgotten all over again. Now, if you want to sell a really big lie, you have to surround it with a bunch of small, believable truths. Montague called it pocket litter. They built a whole personality for Major Martin just from the things in his wallet. Ticket stubs, and an overdraft notice from his bank, so he was a bit careless with his money, a stern letter from his dad, so he had family drama, just like a real person. But the absolute key was his fiancée, Pam. They had a photo of a young MI5 clerk and love letters to make their whole romance feel heartbreakingly real. And those love letters, they weren't some grand poetry, nope. They were full of the little things, complaints about wartime rations, inside jokes, the kind of stuff that makes a relationship feel real. The goal was simple. If the Germans believed in the man, Major Martin, then they'd be ready to believe in his mission. Okay, so what about the lie itself? What was actually inside that briefcase chained to his wrist? It was a personal letter from a top general in London to another general in North Africa, and buried inside all the pleasantries was the payload of the entire operation. Now, this wasn't just a simple lie. It was a psychological masterpiece. So the letter says the invasion targets are Greece and Sardinia. But then, and this is the brilliant part, it adds a little line that basically says, and as a cover story, we'll try to make them think we're going for Sicily. It was a double bluff. It flattered German intelligence. It made them feel like they were so smart they'd seen right through the obvious trick to uncover the real plan. It was just irresistible. So how would they even know if the Germans took the date? With this tiny, absolutely brilliant detail. A single human eyelash was tucked inside the fold of the letter. If it was gone when or if the briefcase was returned, they'd know for sure that the Germans had opened it and read everything. So the stage was set. The body of Glindra Michael, now wearing the uniform of Major Martin, was sealed up in this special steel canister. On the outside, it was labeled "Handle with care, optical instruments." It was then driven all the way up to Scotland and loaded onto the submarine HMS Seraph for its final and most important journey.
And look how fast this all happened. On April 30th, the submarine commander read a psalm and gently pushed the body out into the sea. Just hours later, it was found. Just as they'd hoped, German intelligence in Spain got their hands on it, photographed the documents, and sent the intel straight to Berlin. And by the middle of May, Ultra, the Allies' top-secret code-breaking program, was picking up German communications that confirmed it. Hitler himself had bought the lie hook, line, and sinker.
And this chart just shows you how amazingly well it worked. Just look at these numbers. Hitler moves 7 new divisions to Greece and the Balkans. He doubles the number of troops in Sardinia. And Sicily, the real target, you can see it right there, 0 significant reinforcements were sent. The deception had worked perfectly. I mean, the proof was undeniable. On May 14th, a triumphant 3-word telegram was sent to Winston Churchill, who was in Washington at the time. It said, simply, "Mincemeat swallowed whole." The trap had been sprung. And the legacy of this ghost was felt almost immediately. When the Allies finally did invade Sicily on July 10th, the defenders were completely caught by surprise. The island was captured in just 38 days. It saved countless Allied lives and led directly to Mussolini being overthrown. But what about the man at the very center of it all?
Well, for decades after the war, the man at the heart of the story was buried in a cemetery in Huelva, Spain, under this very headstone. His real name, his real story, it all remained a secret. The fictional Major William Martin was buried there with full military honors.
But then, in 1998, after years of digging by an amateur historian, the truth was finally acknowledged. The British government added this inscription to the headstone, finally restoring a name and some measure of dignity to the forgotten Welshman whose body was sacrificed for the war. And this really gets to the heart of the whole story, doesn't it? Operation Mincemeat is a story of absolute genius, but it's built on something called the cold calculus of war. Does the end, saving thousands of lives, shortening the war, justify the means? In this case, stealing and desecrating a man's body? It's a really uncomfortable moral question. Think about it. This was a plan that needed the creativity of a novelist and the precision of a watchmaker, and it was all built on the body of a man that society had completely thrown away. It leaves all of us with a really difficult question. If you were faced with that same terrible choice, to save an entire army, what would you have done?